The 1950s revolutionized how justice played out on screen, transforming stuffy legal proceedings into edge-of-your-seat drama. Did you know 3 of these films actually changed real-world law practices? And one was banned in several states, despite winning an Oscar. Let's dive into the definitive ranking of courtroom classics that defined a generation. Number 15. The Paradigm Case, 1947. Alfred Hitchcock's darkest legal thriller stars Gregory Peck as Anthony Keene, a brilliant barrister who falls dangerously in love with his client, a woman accused of poisoning her blind husband. The master of suspense turns the courtroom into a psychological battleground, where truth becomes the first casualty. What makes this film extraordinary is how Hitchcock weaponizes the courtroom setting, transforming formal legal procedures into a claustrophobic nightmare. The camera becomes increasingly confined as Keene's obsession grows, with Hitchcock using extreme close-ups during cross-examinations that feel like visual interrogations. Critics initially dismissed it as minor Hitchcock, but modern legal scholars consider it revolutionary for showing how personal bias can corrupt the justice system. The film's depiction of attorney-client boundaries created actual ethics discussions in law schools. Charles Laughton delivers a scene-stealing performance as the sadistic judge Lord Thomas Horfield, reportedly basing the character on a real British judge, so accurately that UK officials attempted to block the film's release. The studio demanded a more optimistic ending, but Hitchcock refused, creating one of the first mainstream films to suggest the legal system might not always deliver justice. The Courtroom set, a meticulously constructed replica of London's Old Bailey, was so authentic that actual British barristers served as consultants and extras. Number 14. Witness for the Prosecution, 1957. Billy Wilder's adaptation of Agatha Christie's play features Charles Laughton as Sir Wilfrid Robarts, a brilliant but ailing barrister defending Leonard Vole against a murder charge. The legendary twist ending was so shocking that theaters refused to seat audiences after the film began, and posted signs begging viewers not to reveal the finale. Wilder's genius shines in how he transforms dry legal procedures into nail-biting suspense. The cross-examination scenes revolutionized courtroom dramas, with their rhythmic verbal sparring and psychological manipulation becoming the template for countless films and TV shows that followed. Marlene Dietrich's performance as Christine Vole required her to essentially play multiple characters within a single role, a feat she accomplished so brilliantly that Christie herself wrote to Dietrich, saying, "You played it better than I wrote it." The film's influence reached beyond entertainment. Its exploration of witness credibility and testimony manipulation actually influenced changes in British evidence laws. The production faced multiple challenges, including Laughton's insistence on wearing his own handcrafted judicial wig rather than the studio-provided one, delaying shooting for 3 days while the proper horsehair was imported from England. Critics hailed it as the perfect legal thriller, with Roger Ebert later writing that no courtroom drama has ever kept its secrets so well. Number 13. The Caine Mutiny, 1954. Humphrey Bogart delivers one of his most unforgettable performances as Captain Queeg, a naval officer whose fitness for command becomes the central question in a riveting court-martial. The film transforms a military tribunal into a psychological battleground, where the line between duty and morality blurs beyond recognition. The court-martial scenes achieve a suffocating intensity rarely matched in cinema, with Bogart's infamous steel ball monologue representing a masterclass in character disintegration. Director Edward Dmytryk, himself a victim of the Hollywood blacklist, infuses the proceedings with his own experience of unjust persecution. Columbia Pictures initially refused to make the film, fearing Navy backlash, until the Pentagon surprisingly approved the script, seeing it as a complex examination of leadership rather than a simple critique. Bogart hated playing Queeg, considering him a sick man, not a villain, but his nuanced portrayal earned him an Academy Award nomination and permanently expanded his range beyond tough guy roles. The film's impact was so profound that the Queeg character entered the legal lexicon as shorthand for examining mental competence during proceedings. The actual courtroom set was designed with unusually low ceilings to create visual compression, making viewers feel the psychological pressure mounting on each character. Navy officials later used the film in leadership training to demonstrate how not to command. Number 12. Trial 1955. Mark Robson's explosive courtroom drama follows Glenn Ford as law professor David Blake defending a Mexican-American teenager accused of murder in a racially charged case. The film boldly tackled themes of prejudice in the legal system decades before such critiques became common. What sets Trial apart is its unflinching examination of how outside forces corrupt justice, portraying media sensationalism, political opportunism, and community prejudice as equally dangerous threats to fair trials. The courtroom becomes a battlefield for America's soul rather than just a single case. The film caused such controversy upon release that several Southern theaters refused to show it, and Ford reportedly received threats for portraying a lawyer who defends a Mexican-American. Arthur Kennedy's performance as the seemingly progressive lawyer who secretly exploits the case for communist fundraising added layers of moral complexity rarely seen in 1950s cinema. Trial broke new ground by consulting with actual defense attorneys who had handled racially charged cases, incorporating their experiences into the script. The American Bar Association initially condemned the film for its negative portrayal of judicial proceedings, but later used it in seminars on bias in the courtroom. Director Robson insisted on shooting the courtroom scenes in sequence, with minimal cuts, creating an unnerving realism that made viewers feel like actual jurors. Number 11. Patterns, 1956. Fletcher Markle's adaptation of Rod Serling's acclaimed teleplay transforms a corporate boardroom into a courtroom where business ethics stand trial. Though not a traditional legal drama, its exploration of testimony, evidence, and moral judgment created a new kind of corporate courtroom where careers and lives hang in the balance. The genius of Patterns lies in applying courtroom drama techniques to business conflicts, with cross-examinations occurring in shareholder meetings and verdicts delivered via executive decisions. Everett Sloane's performance as the ruthless company president, Walter Ramsey, essentially puts capitalism itself on trial. The film was revolutionary for suggesting that corporate decision-making should be subject to the same ethical scrutiny as legal proceedings. Critics called it the most mature examination of American business ever put on film, while business schools began using it in ethics courses. Originally written for television, the response was so overwhelming that it became the first TV drama rushed into film production. Serling's script was so accurate about corporate politics that several executives contacted him, assuming he had insider information about their companies. The film's portrayal of hostile witnesses, procedural manipulation, and closing arguments in a business setting influenced decades of boardroom dramas, with Mad Men creator Matthew Weiner citing it as a primary influence. Number 10. I Want to Live, 1958. Robert Wise's harrowing drama stars Susan Hayward in her Oscar-winning role as Barbara Graham, a prostitute and small-time criminal sentenced to death for murder in a trial marred by sensationalism and questionable evidence. The film revolutionized the genre by focusing on the consequences of an unfair trial rather than the proceedings themselves. What makes this film extraordinary is its relentless examination of capital punishment, with the final 30 minutes depicting the preparation for Graham's execution in excruciating documentary-like detail. The gas chamber scene remains one of the most disturbing sequences in American cinema, forcing viewers to confront the ultimate consequence of legal decisions. Based on a true case, the film sparked national debate about the death penalty, with several states actually halting executions while reviewing their procedures. Hayward prepared by visiting death row and interviewing inmates, delivering a performance of such raw intensity that journalists who had covered the actual case said she captured Graham perfectly. The production faced enormous pressure from California officials who threatened legal action, claiming the film portrayed their justice system unfairly. Director Wise responded by including actual newspaper headlines and court transcripts in the film. The jazz score by Johnny Mandel, unusual for a courtroom drama, creates a dissonant backdrop that emphasizes Graham's outsider status in the legal system. Several jurors from the real trial later admitted they might have voted differently after seeing the film. Number 9. Paths of Glory, 1957. Stanley Kubrick's searing anti-war masterpiece centers on a court-martial where 3 French soldiers face execution for cowardice after refusing to continue a suicidal attack. Kirk Douglas delivers a towering performance as Colonel Dax, the defense attorney, fighting against a military justice system designed to find scapegoats rather than truth. The court-martial sequences achieve a chilling formality, with Kubrick's precise framing and tracking shots emphasizing how the machinery of military justice grinds forward regardless of evidence or morality. The courtroom becomes a theater of absurdity where the verdict is predetermined and justice is merely performance. The film was banned in France until 1975 due to its unflattering portrayal of the French military, while Spain, under Franco's dictatorship, prohibited it entirely. Kubrick shot the trial in a real 18th-century chateau, lending the proceedings an aristocratic coldness that underscored the class divisions between the accused soldiers and their judges. The film's impact was so profound that it influenced military justice reforms in several countries, with its depiction of exemplary punishment cited in later appeals of similar cases. Douglas, whose production company financed the film after major studios rejected it as too controversial, later called it the film I'm most proud of having made. The courtroom scene's stark black and white photography created such stark moral contrasts that law schools have used it to demonstrate how judicial impartiality can be visually undermined. Number 8. Compulsion, 1959. Richard Fleischer's psychological courtroom drama is based on the infamous Leopold and Loeb murder case, featuring Orson Welles as defense attorney Jonathan Wilk, who must defend 2 brilliant but amoral college students who committed murder to prove their intellectual superiority. The film's courtroom sequences are revolutionary for focusing not on questions of guilt, which is never in doubt, but on deeper questions about free will, determinism, and the purpose of justice itself. Welles' 12-minute closing argument against capital punishment ranks among the most powerful monologues in courtroom cinema. The real-life case was so notorious that the film had to change names and certain details to avoid lawsuits, yet was still threatened with legal action by the still-imprisoned Nathan Leopold. Welles reportedly rewrote much of his courtroom dialogue, drawing from actual transcripts of Clarence Darrow's historic defense. Critics were divided on the film's unflinching portrayal of the killer's psychology, with some calling it morally irresponsible, while others praised its revolutionary suggestion that understanding criminal minds doesn't excuse their actions. Dean Stockwell and Bradford Dillman shared the Best Actor award at Cannes for their performances as the killers, with the jury specifically citing the interrogation scenes where legal questioning becomes psychological warfare. Number 7. The Young Philadelphians, 1959. Vincent Sherman's drama stars Paul Newman as Tony Lawrence, an ambitious lawyer who must defend his childhood friend from a murder charge while navigating the corrupt intersection of law, politics, and old-money Philadelphia society. The film transforms a murder trial into an exposé of class privilege in the American legal system. What makes this courtroom drama distinctive is how it positions the trial as the culmination of social forces set in motion decades earlier, suggesting that justice is determined by social connections long before any evidence is presented. Newman's cross-examination techniques became a template for countless legal dramas that followed. The film was controversial for suggesting that Philadelphia's prestigious law firms and courts operated as exclusive clubs where justice was secondary to maintaining social hierarchies. The Pennsylvania Bar Association condemned the film while privately acknowledging its accuracy, with one judge allegedly saying, "It's only libelous because it's true." Robert Vaughn received an Academy Award nomination for his performance as the traumatized defendant, preparing by interviewing veterans suffering from what would later be recognized as PTSD. The courtroom set was modeled on Philadelphia's actual criminal court, with such attention to detail that several real judges and attorneys were used as technical advisors and extras. The film's influence extended beyond entertainment, inspiring a generation of law students to question the class barriers in legal education. Number 6. Anatomy of a Murder, 1959. Otto Preminger's landmark legal drama stars James Stewart as Paul Beegler, a small-town lawyer defending an Army lieutenant who admits to killing a man who allegedly assaulted his wife. The film shattered taboos with its frank discussion of sexual assault and revolutionary approach to legal ethics. The courtroom sequences broke new ground in their authentic portrayal of trial strategy, with unprecedented attention to procedural detail and legal maneuvering. Preminger insisted on shooting in an actual courthouse, using real judges and attorneys as consultants, creating what law professors still consider the most accurate depiction of trial practice ever filmed. The film caused national controversy for its use of terms like rape, sperm, and panties, which had never before been spoken in mainstream American cinema. Several theaters refused to show it, while the Chicago Police Department temporarily seized a print. Despite this, or perhaps because of it, the film was nominated for 7 Academy Awards. Real-life judge Joseph N. Welch plays the trial judge, bringing extraordinary authenticity to the proceedings. The film's influence was so profound that law schools still use it to teach evidence and cross-examination techniques. Duke Ellington's jazz score, revolutionary for a courtroom drama, underscores the improvisational nature of trial work. Michigan Supreme Court Justice John D. Volcker wrote the original novel under a pseudonym, basing it on a murder case he had actually defended. Number 5. 12 Angry Men, 1957. Sidney Lumet's masterpiece takes place almost entirely in a jury deliberation room, where Henry Fonda's Juror 8 must convince 11 other men to reconsider their hasty guilty verdict in a murder trial. The film revolutionized courtroom drama by showing that the real trial often happens during jury deliberations, away from the formal procedures of the courtroom. What makes this film extraordinary is how it transforms a simple room into a legal battlefield, with each juror's prejudices and reasoning becoming evidence to be examined. Lumet's brilliant direction makes the space feel increasingly claustrophobic, shooting the first third from above, the second at eye level, and the final third from below to create mounting tension. The film was a commercial failure upon release, nearly ending Lumet's career, but became a cultural touchstone after television broadcasts introduced it to wider audiences. Its impact on the legal system was profound. Jury training programs still show it to demonstrate how personal bias affects deliberations, and several countries reformed their jury instructions based on issues raised in the film. Fonda, who also produced the film, took no salary in exchange for a percentage of profits, believing so strongly in the project, despite studio skepticism. The deliberation room was built with walls that could be removed to accommodate camera angles, and the temperature was deliberately raised during filming to increase actor discomfort and create authentic tension. The American Bar Association ranks it as the greatest legal film ever made, with real judges frequently citing it in instructions to actual juries. Number 4. Inherit the Wind, 1960. Stanley Kramer's fictionalized account of the infamous Scopes monkey trial features Spencer Tracy and Frederick March as opposing attorneys battling over whether evolution can be taught in public schools. The film transforms a historical legal case into a timeless debate about the conflict between science and religion in American public life. The courtroom sequences achieve extraordinary dramatic power, with the examination and cross-examination of witnesses serving as proxies for larger cultural conflicts. The film's most electric moment comes when Tracy's character puts biblical literalism itself on trial by cross-examining his opponent as an expert witness on the Bible. The film faced backlash from religious organizations who called it anti-Christian propaganda, while several southern states attempted to ban it. Despite changing names and certain details, the film follows the actual trial transcripts remarkably closely, particularly during the famous examination sequences. Tracy and March studied recordings of the actual attorneys Clarence Darrow and William Jennings Bryan, incorporating their mannerisms and argument styles. The courtroom was built as an exact replica of the Dayton, Tennessee courthouse where the original trial took place, down to the period-appropriate ceiling fans that complicated sound recording. The film's relevance has only grown over time, with screenings spiking whenever evolution and creationism debates resurface in American education. Number 3. To Kill a Mockingbird, 1962. Robert Mulligan's adaptation of Harper Lee's beloved novel features Gregory Peck in his Oscar-winning role as Atticus Finch, a small-town lawyer defending a black man falsely accused of assaulting a white woman in 1930s Alabama. The film transformed the courtroom drama by viewing proceedings through the eyes of children, stripping away legal pretensions to reveal the moral simplicity at the heart of justice. The courtroom sequences achieve a documentary-like realism, filmed in a replica of the actual Monroe County Courthouse that inspired Lee's original setting. Peck's closing argument, delivered directly to the camera as if addressing the audience as jurors, ranks as perhaps the most powerful speech in courtroom cinema history. The film's impact on American legal culture cannot be overstated. A 2018 American Bar Association survey named Atticus Finch the greatest hero of American jurisprudence, fictional or real. Applications to law schools saw measurable increases following the film's release, with countless attorneys citing Finch as their inspiration. Harper Lee was so impressed with Peck's performance that she gave him her father's pocket watch, the real-life attorney who inspired Atticus. The courtroom scenes were shot in sequence over 3 weeks, with local townspeople serving as the gallery spectators, many of whom had experienced similar trials firsthand. The film's depiction of racial inequality in the justice system proved so powerful that it was used in civil rights-era sensitivity training for judges in southern states. Number 2. Judgment at Nuremberg, 1961. Stanley Kramer's monumental drama examines the Nazi war crime trials through the case against 4 German judges who used their legal authority to enable atrocities. The film transforms an international tribunal into a reckoning with how law itself can become weaponized against humanity. The courtroom sequences achieve unprecedented gravity through their incorporation of actual Nazi concentration camp footage, marking the first time most Americans saw these images. The moment when these films are shown in court created stunned silence in theaters, with reports of audiences leaving in shock. The film was banned in multiple countries for its unflinching portrayal of Nazi crimes, while West Germany pressured United Artists to cut certain sequences for its German release. Maximilian Schell won an Oscar for his defense of the German judges, creating one of cinema's most morally complex performances by making compelling arguments without ever excusing the inexcusable. Montgomery Clift, playing a victim of Nazi sterilization policies, was so physically and mentally ill during filming that he could only work for short periods, yet delivered testimony so powerful that the crew reportedly applauded after his scenes. The film's most controversial aspect was its suggestion that ordinary Germans, particularly legal professionals, bore responsibility for enabling the Holocaust through their compliance, a position that sparked international debate about collective guilt. Spencer Tracy spent months studying the mannerisms and speech patterns of real Nuremberg judges to create his portrayal of Chief Judge Dan Haywood. Number 1. The Wrong Man, 1956. Alfred Hitchcock's most unique film stars Henry Fonda as Manny Balestrero, a musician wrongfully accused of armed robbery. Based on a true story, Hitchcock abandons his usual suspense techniques for a documentary-like approach, creating the most terrifying courtroom drama of the era, precisely because it could happen to anyone. What makes this courtroom drama extraordinary is how it reveals the nightmare beneath the legal system's surface, where innocent people can be crushed by the machinery of justice through simple mistaken identity. The film's police lineups, interrogations, and preliminary hearings are portrayed with such clinical detachment that they become more frightening than any conventional thriller. Hitchcock opens the film with an unprecedented direct address to the camera, personally vouching for the story's authenticity, the only time he ever did this. The real Manny Balestrero visited the set, but was asked. The film was shot in many of the actual locations where the events occurred, including the same courtroom, using stark black-and-white photography to emphasize its documentary qualities. Bernard Herrmann's score avoids his usual dramatic flourishes for a subdued, anxiety-inducing minimalism that underscores the ordinary horror of the situation. The film's unflinching portrayal of how the legal process itself can destroy lives, regardless of eventual verdicts, influenced generations of wrongful conviction narratives and contributed to actual reforms in eyewitness identification procedures. So, which of these courtroom classics left the biggest impression on you? Let me know in the comments if you think modern legal dramas have lost the moral complexity these 1950s films dared to explore. And here's the real question that divides film buffs and legal experts alike. Did these films actually improve our justice system? Or did they create dangerous misconceptions about how courts really work that we're still dealing with today? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into cinema history, and let me know which classic film genre you want me to explore next time.